Online somewhere.
Yes, sir, I am here.
Okay, I was just checking. As soon as I get a nod, we're going to open the gates. YouTube, we're up and good? Okay.
So you're going to be there on Thursday, so has someone done the appropriate paperwork for that? Oh, no, we can work on it.
Okay. Are you guys good to go?
Good to go, sir.
Okay, I'm just checking.
We'll just turn it over to you. How about that?
Yeah, I'd appreciate it. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this special meeting Tuesday, June 29th, 2021 at 10 a.m. To order, and we're going to start off with a Pledge of Allegiance. And Supervisor Klein, would you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And on these special meetings, there's no invocation, so we will go ahead and get started here. Regular agenda item, information discussion regarding an update on the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 grant funding from Gila County's federal lobbyist Patty Powers of BOS Public Affairs Group. We have Mary Springer and Patty. We're going to go through her presentation. Good morning, Patty. Thanks for joining us this morning, and good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors. In talking with Patty, she has put together this PowerPoint to kind of walk through the finer points of the ARPA money and answer or try to answer or address any questions you may have. So I'd like to turn it over to Patty.
Good morning, Patty. You're on.
Good morning, everyone. And thanks for taking the time today to go over this information. There's a lot of information. It's a lot of money, so it's you would expect that the federal government would be looking to provide some clear direction. The way I was thinking about what we're going to talk about this morning is really sort of the beginning of the discussion. The county was allocated over $10 million. You have until the end of 2024 to obligate all of those dollars. There are some fairly clear limitations on how the money can be spent. This is not the only money that's coming to the county relative to some of the needs that it can address, so it will be a good time to think strategically about how to kind of maximize the impacts of these dollars for the long term on the county and all of its residents. So I'll run through these slides. There's a lot of information here. There's a lot of information not here. Happy to take questions after each slide, and then time allowing, we can have a discussion after. But I do hope this is the first discussion of a number of them. Again, you don't need to make any decisions on this right away, and there will be time to be looking at lots of options as to how to approach it.
Okay, so, Patty, if I can interrupt you for just a second. Yeah, because I think most of these dollars are going to go through emergency management, perhaps. And so we have Michael O'Driscoll on the phone as well for us to ask questions on some of these spending dollars. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know he was on board as well. And so go ahead and continue.
Okay, thank you. So the first slide just it lays out Title M in the American Rescue Plan Act. This act funded over, nearly $2 trillion worth of COVID relief rescue funding. Title M was just part of it. And Title M provided the authority for funds to go directly to states and local governments including counties, cities, and non-entitlement units of sort of your smaller cities and towns, including many in Gila County. So the Title M provided for $362 billion. There are sort of three separate big buckets of that money. The largest one is the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and that provides specifically for counties $65.1 billion. Those funds were allocated by the Department of Treasury according to population, and they're being delivered in two tranches. The county got the first tranche last month. The other one of the other buckets is for Capital Projects Fund, which is going to be all focused on infrastructure. I think most people expect a lot of broadband money in there. That money goes directly to the states, and the states are not required to share it with other governments within their boundaries. But there could be some opportunities there to partner with the state on a potential, like say, if you wanted to do an infrastructure broadband or some other kind of infrastructure project. And then the third bucket is a $2 billion bucket for local assistance and tribal consistency fund. This was added at the very last minute before the bill was finished on the Senate. And Senator Wyden put in $1.5 billion for PILT counties. So these are only counties that receive PILT funds. Treasury is still working this through. We haven't seen any guidance on it yet, and they said not to expect it till later this summer. But there will be additional funds for Gila County coming out of this fund as well. It is not entirely, well, they gave some guidelines on how to distribute the funds, but it's, there's no way to really try to figure it out without getting some more specific guidance from the Treasury Department. So that was a $2 billion fund. $1.5 billion is for PILT counties, and the other $500 million is for tribes. So moving on to the specifics, I'm sorry, can you go to slide 3? Here's some more of the specifics on these fiscal recovery funds, or FRF dollars. Treasury made the announcements on the allocations and released some guidance on May 10th. Gila County was allocated $10,492,000, $363 total. The law requires that the money going to cities and counties be split into two tranches. So the county received the first tranche last month, and to over $5 billion. The second tranche will be delivered within or soon after, a year after the date of the first tranche delivery. And as I mentioned earlier, the funds must be obligated by December 31st, 2024. And I'm sorry, I meant to ask, does anybody have any questions yet?
I do, Patty. This is Woody.
Hey, Woody.
On that first slide, when looks like we're going to get that extra money for PILT, and your opinion is we'll be fully funded for the PILT?
So this doesn't have anything to do with PILT funding. This is completely separate.
But it goes to PILT counties, is that correct?
Right. So and I mean, it was not the intention of Congress to have it replace what you would be getting from somewhere else. This is, all these funds are on top of other funds you're getting.
Okay.
The other thing to note about that is, I'm glad you asked about that, Woody, is that these dollars in the Local Assistance and Travel Consistency Fund are considered revenue sharing dollars. So basically they go to the county and with minimal rules. There's no match, there's no requirements on where you need to spend it. And I have to go back and look, but I don't remember that there was a deadline on when you needed to spend it either.
Okay. So maybe, okay, I got that. And then the 10 billion that's going to go to the states for infrastructure. Do you think that's going to be money, whatever money comes down through our state that could be used in recovery on these fires? Is that going to be an opportunity, you think?
I haven't spent a lot of time looking at that yet, and the Treasury hasn't come out with any guidance on that yet. What the law says is it talks about infrastructure, and one of the big interests of Congress in this bill was finding ways to address the digital divide in the country, because COVID really highlighted that. For you guys where you just don't have any access at all, and a different but similar kind of situation in a lot of cities where there are lots of communities with no access. So I think that was pretty much the intent, but I don't recall, I can check on it and get back to you, if it was limited in the statute. So but it is definitely the state's decision on how to deal with that, and it's, there's no reason to believe that if there wasn't, if the language in the statute allows flexibility, then it would that the governor would consider
Okay.
that kind of spending.
Thanks, Patty.
Okay, you can go on with
Anybody
your
else?
presentation, Patty. No, I think we're good.
Okay, slide 4. So in the Treasury Department is releasing guidance. They released an interim final rule on that was published in the Federal Register on May 16th. It was effective when it was published on the 10th of May, but we get a 60-day period to provide comments. So the comments are due on July 16th, 2021. The rule describes what the eligible uses are. It provides definitions. It outlines prohibitions on funding and lays out reporting and other requirements. Treasury, I'm on phone calls with the Treasury and the White House on a regular basis. They are urging all local governments to provide them with comments on this rulemaking. Where you all think they got it right, where you think they got it wrong, how if it's going to be a problem for you to implement in a certain way. So if you could just keep that in mind as we run through some of these requirements, and I would also urge you to consider making comments. I'm happy to work with staff and with you all to finalize them. It doesn't have to be anything super formal or long and detailed, but there are some issues that I think are of enough importance that it will be really important for the county to weigh in with the folks making the decisions on how this money is going to be spent at the Treasury Department. Any questions?
Not unless Michael O'Driscoll has some on maybe comments, because he's been working with an awful lot of funding. And so, Michael, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chairman. The only comment I have that I'd like the board to understand is we were awarded I went in front of the board a couple of weeks ago. We had applied for a federal grant to deal with health equities and all this other stuff through federal agency HRSA. And we were just awarded that $2.5 million. And if you add that into some of the other funding that is being passed through the health department, I think the total we're up to since the beginning of COVID is close to $8 million now. I would say that we have enough money on our end right now a lot of the public health deliverables in this funding we're already doing. So I just want you all to keep that into consideration when you're discussing strategies for this kind of money, because we are already doing a lot of what's in these deliverables.
Yeah, I kind of.
And that's.
Go ahead.
Oh, and that's the end of my comments, sir.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just wondering if you wanted to maybe work with Patty on commenting how they distributed the money, what they did good, what they did bad, or anything of that nature. That was the only thing.
Yep, absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Okay, Patty, go ahead.
Okay, can you pull up slide number 5? So what to do with your $10+ billion? So in addition to the fiscal recovery funds, ARPA provides other funding to help communities and businesses recover from COVID. For example, there's money that's available at the local government level. Is you can provide assistance for rent people to meet their rent. There's homeowners funding for people to help pay their mortgages. There's a big interest in trying to avoid the creation of a big wave of homelessness because of the pandemic. In addition to that, there are other federal funding streams that are available, like some of the ones that Michael just mentioned. There's money coming into the county from a number of different other authorities, and it will be important to take a look at that and see where you are on those funds to weigh the decisions about what to do with this $10+ million. Any questions?
Not at this point. Go ahead.
Okay, so slide number 6. And again, this is sort of repeating where I started. So this is a great time to strategically consider how to spend these funds. So within the eligible uses, there are different requirements that may want you to put some project in one bucket or another, and we can run through that as we discuss the eligible uses. As I mentioned, we want to monitor what the federal government's doing and the state government on the state capital projects fund, and then and also you want to see how much money you're going to get for the county's local assistance and consistency fund, and that money in that local assistance fund, that's revenue sharing money. So that'll be, in some ways, that's your most valuable federal money of all these buckets, because it will not have any other requirements. Basically, when it gets to the county, it becomes your money. So there's no federal requirements that attach to it. There's no matches that attach to it. You can use it to match other federal funds. So so that's, if you can think about it, I mean, a dollar is a dollar, but a dollar, attached to a cost share is a little less valuable. So you want to be thinking about not only how much money's coming in, but what sort of requirements are attached to it or not attached to it, and determining how to spend it. Let's go to the next slide, and then we can do questions after that, because that was just a continuation of this first one. And I mixed up my slides. I'm sorry. So keep slide 6 up there for a minute for me. So one thing that I've heard a lot of other local governments discuss as they're thinking through how to spend or how to deal with all these funds coming in is to think of it in terms of investment and not just spending. So you want to be able to have something lasting with where you're putting these dollars. One item you can think about is teaming up with other local government partners to help leverage the funds that you and they are getting. Specifically, in your cities and towns that have received funds, some of them probably have never received direct federal funding before. They are subject to all of the same reporting requirements that you will be for receiving federal funds. And, you know, that might be an overwhelming kind of situation for some of them. So rather than losing those funds, it might be worth it for the county to think about approaching some of those entities to see if they wanted to team up with you on projects that are going to touch their citizens directly. And, you know, again, you want to prioritize funding with other ARPA money that is specific to a need before you use your fiscal recovery funds, because you can determine how to spend those. So if you have dollars coming in, like Michael mentioned, on all this healthcare related public health kinds of programs, you might want to make sure that you've spent all of those dollars before you assign fiscal recovery funds, so that gives you more flexibility over the long term. So that was slide number 6. Slide number 7, I already talked about. So any questions on strategic considerations?
None from the board. Go ahead.
Okay, slide number 8, please. So the statute defined 4 different buckets of fiscal recovery fund eligible uses. The first is public health and negative economic impacts from COVID-19, so kind of similar to the CARES Act, CRF dollars. The second bucket is pandemic health pay for both public and private employees. The third is lost revenue replacement, and you can use that to pay for any government service, with a couple of exceptions. And then the fourth bucket is what they call the infrastructure bucket, and it allows funding for drinking water projects or wastewater projects, and they are defined by what is allowed under EPA's state revolving loan fund programs, and also broadband infrastructure, which is also defined. We'll get into a little bit further. The infrastructure bucket does not have to be COVID related. Any questions? We're going to get into the details on each of these here next.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. And the thing of it is I believe if we have a question, one of these gentlemen from the board will kind of nudge me, and then I'll stop you. And so if I don't stop you, then you're welcome to keep rolling, because we've got a lot more slides, and so go ahead.
Yep. Okay. So let's go to slide number 9. And these are some details on the public health allowable use, eligible use. So these are all of these kinds of projects or programs have to be related to the pandemic. So this would all be the kinds of things that Michael works on. Mitigation and containment, this is your vaccines, testing and tracing, supplies, things like that. Medical expenses. Again, this is more public health kind of work on long-term impacts and getting prepared for new variants. Again, it would be more vaccines and more vaccine delivery kinds of work. Behavioral health care would be to address mental health needs, including substance abuse. There's a lot of evidence of much increased need for this kind of funding. And finally, it allows for payment to public health and other staff that is supporting pandemic response activities. So I think this is all pretty much within Michael's purview. Slide 10. So slide 10 outlines the negative economic impacts as related to COVID. And the funding that you can use some of this funding to address impacts on individuals, families, workers, small businesses. The public sector, the county can rehire staff, not only in the public health area, but also for economic relief programs. Small businesses, you can provide loans and grants and other kinds of assistance, including technical assistance. Impacted industries, the statute included the tourism, travel and hospitality, and the guidance repeats that, but also states that that is not the only set of the only type of industries that can be supported through these funds. I've had the conversation with I think it was with James about this. There is some sort of Arizona constitutional limitation on the county government providing funds directly to business. So that may be a more complicated kind of thing to figure out. But if there is any opportunity to provide, maybe if you can't provide the funds, you can provide technical assistance to your small businesses that have been impacted. Slide number 11. So hazard pay. Hazard pay was allowed under the CARES Act as well. It was a more defined under this statute. It allows premium pay of up to an additional $13 per hour to eligible county workers, or also you can provide the funds to in a grant to third-party employers, nonprofits, or other businesses. There are clear definitions for both eligible workers and essential work in the rule. Hazard pay can cover any work that had been completed after January 27, 2020, which was the declaration of the emergency, the national emergency. You can't spend any more than $25,000 per employee. And it's up to the county within the definitions that the rule provides to define what categories of workers are eligible for premium pay.
Any questions?
Slide number 12, please. The revenue replacement. This was a big issue all through last year and the different pieces of legislation that was moving. And finally, in the American Rescue Plan, it was included as something that the federal government was going to provide some assistance to state and local government for. There have been great debates around this provision. There's a lot of ways to try to look at how to define what revenue's been lost due to the pandemic. All of the controversy around this provision isn't in how you can spend the money, but it's how you calculate how much, what your lost revenue is, and which will tell you how much of your $10+ million you can spend in this area. So what the rule provides for is that you have to calculate your revenue lost by net revenue year over year, and they also allow for an assumption of growth. You can either use the average of the 3 years prior to the pandemic, or you can use their assumed minimum rate of 4.1%, and they recommend that you use whatever is highest. And then you compare what that calculation is to your actual revenue, and that will define how much was lost. So Mary has run the numbers, and unfortunately, according to the formula, the county does not have any lost revenue available.
Well, thanks for that information.
Yeah, so that's not good news, because this is the bucket within within your 10 million that is the most flexible. So this one, basically, if it's something that the government would spend money on, you would be able to spend the amount of lost revenue out of the 10 million on. So like one of the areas where there's a lot of interest in trying to spend some of this money is on road projects. And the only way you can spend money on road projects out of your 10 plus million is if you could do it with lost revenue. So this would be one of the areas that I would recommend strongly the county file comments on with the Treasury Department to say, if we looked at our lost revenue by source, we definitely lost revenue through COVID. Things that would have normally been opened were closed because of social distancing requirements. Whatever the reason is. So that would be, and you're not alone. I mean, this is a big issue across the country, and it varies, in type of government, size of government. For some folks, the Treasury formula, based on the net, worked better for them than if they aggregated their sources. But for you and others, it has not. So this will be one for sure you want to consider getting some comments in by the 16th of July to the Treasury Department. And Treasury has said they ask for comments. I'm on calls with them at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, and they're always asking for comments. And they're being pretty reactive. Now, I don't know that they're going to change this, but I think we would want to urge them to change it so that the county did have some of that 10 million that was eligible to do some projects that may not fall under the other three buckets. Any questions on this one?
Not so far.
Okay. Slide 13. So this is the infrastructure bucket. And again, you can do drinking water projects, wastewater projects, and broadband projects. And none of this work needs to be related to COVID by definition. So it could be something that you have been planning to do all along. When you do use this money, though, say you were going to use it for a wastewater project, you wouldn't have to apply the standard cost shares. Also, these dollars are not burdened with the NEPA requirements or with Davis-Bacon requirements. If you mingle these funds with other federal funds that have those requirements attached, you would have to comply with all of the funds. So this might be an attractive opportunity for the county.
Okay, I've got a question now. The drinking water projects, most of the drinking water companies are privately owned, and wastewater is within the cities. And broadband we're working on, but that's kind of a private company too. So would those fundings be through the county to the private companies, or is it available to private companies for those projects?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because I mean, we're not in the water business or the wastewater business or the broadband business. And so that's would be kind of difficult for us to leverage funds unless it's just something that we could inform a private company to reach for if that's where the funds are going, because I don't know that would be related to us firsthand, and that was my question. So
yeah, so these funds, you already have these funds. Well, you have half of them. So your question is, can you then give those funds to a private company to build something in the county?
I guess, yes, that's my question.
Okay. I've not seen that question come up before, so let me get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Tim. Yeah, that was a good question. Okay. Anybody else?
No, we're good.
All right. Slide 14, please. So these are the ineligible uses. Direct payments into a pension fund. So this does not include if you make a premium, a hazard pay, premium pay to an employee, or if you use any of these funds to pay employees for their work under the public health bucket. You could, if their normal pay includes a payment into a pension fund, that is not what they're talking about here. What they're talking about here is actually one of the issues that held this kind of funding up for almost a year is the, that primarily it would be states would be using these funds to back up pension funds, teachers' funds, and firefighters, pension funds, things like that. So you're not allowed to do that. There was a broad prohibition on debt payments, but this one I can tell you is under some consideration for things like short-term debt, where governments were just out of money for a while and just went to the market to keep whatever they could keep open. So this one, we may see some changes here and it would probably be changes to be something very narrow in the length of the borrowing and for what purpose it was borrowed. So we'll see what happens on that one. You can't use the money to make any legal payments for legal settlements or judgments. You cannot replace funds that you took out of a rainy day fund or create a rainy day fund. This one's kind of controversial too, but I haven't seen any signs that Treasury is gonna bend on this one. And these funds cannot be used to make a federal match. They were very clear about this. The one place where there was a lot of interest for a long time in being able to use funds, and they ultimately did allow the use of CRF funds to match FEMA dollars. But right now, there is no match on FEMA dollars, so that's no longer an issue. Slide 15, please. So I just wanted to put up some dates just to give you context for what, where we are and what's coming. So the declaration of the public health emergency was the 27th of January of last year. So that's the start date for a lot of measuring impacts. March 3rd, 2021 is what Treasury selected as the start of the Fiscal Recovery Fund covered period. That one, the statute only applied that to states, not to local governments, but I haven't seen a lot of interest in trying to dial that back a little bit more. And that's important because you can only fund things, expenses within the covered period. As I said before, July 16, 2021, so in a few weeks, is the deadline for the rule comments. There will be some reporting requirements attached to these funds, as I'm sure you would expect. The first deadline is August 31st coming up, and that is for an interim report. I've got some things to send to Mary that sort of describe the sorts of information they're looking for there, and they're coming out with a lot more over the next month or so. But basically, they're just looking in this interim report to see sort of broad areas where you've spent some of the money, or if you've spent any of it. Your first quarterly project and expenditure report is due on October 31st, 2020. Because of the county's size and the amount of money that that you're getting through this program, you will be required to submit these reports quarterly. And it's a little more detailed than the interim report, but again, they're still working through the details on that. Slide 16, please. And December 31st, 2024, that's when all of your fiscal recovery funds must be obligated. If they've not been obligated by that date, they get returned to Treasury. So an obligation is not necessarily an expenditure. It could be, say, if you were doing some kind of infrastructure, you have all the contracts out, the work is ongoing. You wouldn't have had to actually, sign the check to the contractor, but you would have to have the contract showing that money's been obligated to pay this entity for this project. And then December 31st, 2026, that's when all of your projects must be done and all of the funds have to be actually spent. So again, going back to the infrastructure project example where you have a contract, that's your obligation by 2024, and then you wrote them the check by 2026. Slide 17, please. So in addition to the other funds that are coming in from other COVID-related legislation and other provisions within the American Rescue Plan, the federal government is considering an infrastructure package, as I'm sure you're aware. And it may be well worth it, especially if they continue on the path they seem to be this week of actually getting something done related to that by, within the next few months. It would probably be useful to see what funding and project authorizations are provided in that package before making decisions on, say, any infrastructure-related funding with your $10 million. You wouldn't want to commit some of that $10 million, that's pretty kind of flexible money, if you were ultimately going to get enough money for the kind of project you were looking to do in the infrastructure package. And then annual appropriations, you just want to see what that looks like for this year and order your priorities that way. Slide number 18, please. So next steps. As I said when I started, this, it's probably good to think about this as kind of the beginning of the process. You do have 2.5 years to obligate all of this money. A lot of other things going on at the same time. It would be good to run through some sort of a needs assessment to figure out where you'd want to prioritize things. There are some local governments that are doing some public outreach to get impact from their voters about what they see their needs as. There's some interest in some places of looking at, we always did things in this particular way, but the pandemic showed us that maybe that wasn't the way to do it, and we want to start doing it differently. Is there something we want to do there? There's a lot of different programs and thoughts about things that this is a great time to be thinking about that. And then again, there's, just measuring where you have funds coming in from other sources, where you might be able to partner with other local governments, or, even there's opportunities to partner with the state, say on a broadband project. You want to put that into the mix as well. And again, you have some time to work this all out. And slide 19, these are just some useful links. I can just email these all to you all too, if you wanted to sort of read more of the details. And slide 20 is the end. So any further questions, And besides the question from Tim on infrastructure, any other questions
Yeah,
that I can get back to you on?
I'll have one for you in a minute, but let's start with Jackie,
Thank you.
our acting county manager at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Patty, at the beginning, you mentioned that there is a bucket of money that will be perhaps targeted toward folks to help combat the potential future homelessness that was about either rental assistance or mortgage assistance. I want to be clear on just a question that James had. That's not part of this FRF money, or is it?
No, it's not.
Thank you. Will that money go through, one follow-up, will that be more of a state-led? I mean, is that bucket something that maybe doesn't come through counties?
Yeah, let me check on that and see where you guys are on the for the rental assistance. If you were going to get that, you should have probably gotten that so far. And the homeowners does not come directly to the county.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted that
let me
clarification, but get back on the rental
Yeah,
assistance.
let me get back to you with information on the rental and I know it's out there. I think it might just go to the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Patty.
But it would be, I mean, you all need to know about it though, because it's even though you wouldn't be providing those funds, there would be someone in the state that would be providing them to the citizens of the county.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
So
also,
you could get the word out on them even if you weren't actually distributing the dollars.
okay, I'm going to go to Homero Villa, who is a assistant county manager, and ask him if he has any questions for Patty. Go ahead, Homero.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Earlier, one of the supervisors brought up the idea of can we use these funds to help private companies, water companies, wastewater companies, and carriers, broadband carriers. I think that's a really good question. I think there's an opportunity. There could be an opportunity to partner with the carriers and with the cities and towns on broadband under the right circumstances. But the questions that I have are, Patty, I don't know if you're familiar with the words underserved and unserved that was in the definition or in the slide that mentioned broadband. It says that it's available to provide service to unserved and underserved, and usually it's very difficult to find large areas that are unserved or underserved. So I wanted to see if you could help us with what that definition is. Other than that, I don't have any other questions.
Betty, do you need any clarification of your notes from Homero? Are you good?
Yeah, there's and I mean, just to touch on that for a minute. So there is a lot of emphasis in the rule on people who have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. And the way that Treasury defined those groups of people are by a HUD designation called qualified census tracts. So I ended up down a rabbit hole on this yesterday just to see how that was going to apply to the county. So Gila County does not have any qualified census tracts. You do have it's a category called I think it's difficult development areas, or DDAs, and the whole county is considered a DDA. But the way the rule is written, being a DDA does not allow you to take these extra steps. So I've asked a few folks about, you know, how are they interpreting this for rural communities, and I haven't heard back yet. So that's one place they use underserved a lot, Homer. But I think for in terms of broadband, I think they're looking to see, where the underserved or not served would be where there is no broadband. And I don't think that the county would have any problem qualifying for that.
The broadband 25.3 is fairly easy to achieve. It's a very low standard, 25 megabyte download and 3 upload. And it does use the word wireline, and I think I've seen the definition of wireline connection. It includes digital subscriber loop, which is the service that's provided via the telephone wires. And the telephone wires are just found everywhere. So these kind of words get in the way, I think, of finding large areas that are underserved or unserved. Wireline also includes satellite, by the way. And like for
okay, well then I think that this. Go ahead.
So, for instance, Young is served by satellite, and you can get satellite service in Young if you can stand the delay in the signal, and easily purchase 25 megabyte download, 3 megabyte upload. But it's very expensive, and it's poor quality broadband.
Mm-hmm. This would be an excellent area to provide comments on. I'll send you the actual rule language to take a look at, and maybe we can talk about that and provide some comments. Because I mean, if they're looking at you all as not needing an improvement to service, then there's something really wrong with the requirements.
Okay, we'll work on it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna reach out. Michael, you're on the phone. Did you have any questions or anything going forward?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I'm good, sir.
Okay, good. Well, I guess now we'll open it up to the board. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Patty, for the presentation. This is Supervisor Christensen. I have a few questions, but most of them I think are going to be aimed at our own staff. The $5.25 million that we've already received, that's in our budget. It's part of our budget coming up. Okay, that's what I remember. Thank you. And have we already started a list of the comments for the IFR? Who's putting that together? How is that being done for this July 16th deadline?
Go ahead, Jack.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Christensen. Generally, what we will do is collect Patty's suggestions, the board's suggestions, Michael's, Homero's, Mary's, put it all together, bring it to the board for action, I'm guessing on the 13th. Because that's our last meeting before they're due. And that's generally, when we submit comments to a federal project, I usually collate, get it on an agenda, and you all vote on it.
Okay,
so
great.
That's going to be the process of that. If we didn't have time for a board meeting, we would go about that a different direction, and each of you would make comments separately. But what we have done in the past that works well is to collect staff comments, board comments, put it all together and have the board vote.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure I have the expertise to make the comments. So those experts within our county are the ones that need to be doing that, and so that we can see, because I don't know. Michael would certainly have a lot more insight on what needed to be done on those items, and Homero with broadband and, that sort of thing. So, and then how will we go about the process of how we're going to spend that money? Are we going to have similar input to determine where it's all going to go? Do we have a work study on that? What do we do?
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Christensen, that's what this meeting is sort of kicking off, is that broad over. This is the first of a number of discussions that will be held but we started with having Patty kind of introduce the overarching, this is what it looks like, and these are what the moving parts still are. I would expect that Mr. Minlove would have a number of, we have some time now that Patty has introduced it to think about it and then gather some direction from you all and then move forward.
Okay.
So it will be an organized process. I can't tell you what that looks like just yet.
Okay. Thank you. And Patty, this new infrastructure bill that they're working on in Congress right now and they're fighting over, do we know what's in that at all at the moment?
It's just at a very high level, like literally a 2-page summary for $1.2 trillion. So it's your basic, it's more of your, what you'd think of as basic infrastructure, no human infrastructure. Things like roads, bridges, rail, transit, airports, broadband is included. I can send you a summary, this 2-page summary, but 1 page is just very hot top line numbers. It's spending out over 8 years,
Okay.
In those different categories. And then the 2nd page of the summary is how they would pay for it. It's always a lot harder to come up with that list than it is with the list of where they want to spend the money.
Okay.
But it's very general. Is there anything in particular that you were interested in?
No, it's just
Finding
that
out about?
you'd said that we should make a consideration before we decide what we're spending this first money on, according to what this new bill might contain. And I'm not really sure
Right.
the timing there. We don't know if it's going to pass or not and all that. So it's a good suggestion. I was just curious about it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's everybody wants to know what's going to be in that package, and yeah, I don't know what the news coverage is like out there, but I mean, it's been a real roller coaster the last couple of weeks. It's on, it's off, it's who's part of it or who's not, and but I think that I think the country's sending the message that it's time to get something together here, and I think we will see something. So, for example, I believe there's $65 billion in that package for broadband. That's all we know right now is what, $65 billion for broadband. That's a lot of money, even on the national basis. So what we'll be watching for is to see how they describe how they would spend that $65 billion. So then we can look at it for the county to see, what could the county expect to get out of a program like that.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you very much, Patty. Chairman.
Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Patty, thank you for the presentation, but I think I'm good on questions right now.
Okay.
Okay.
You know how to get in touch with me if you've got a question.
Yeah,
You bet.
and Patty, I've got questions, but it's a completely different rat hole, and so I will call you and kind of let you know what I've been working on because of all of our fires and things. And so, anyway, I'll touch base with you later on a conversation. And I thank
Great.
you very much for the presentation. And so, if that's kind of all the questions, then I appreciate it very much, and we're going to move on with our agenda. So thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome. And anytime you have any questions, please just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to regular.
All right, thank you.
Moving on to number 2, regular agenda items. B, information discussion to consider draft human resources policy number BOS-HRS-160. Attendance, holidays, and leave. That would replace Rule 23, attendance, holiday, and leave, which is under the Gila County Merit System Rules and Procedures. Alan Bulsomi, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Well, thank you.
One of the first things that Mr. Menlove asked me to do when I got here was to take a look at all the merit rules and the personnel policies. Oh, not on?
Is it on? Is there a green light
It's
on
a
it?
green light. I'm just not close enough. How about there? That better? Okay.
Yeah.
Was to take a look at the personnel policies and merit rules and do some updating and comparison to other counties to see if we're in the ballpark. One of the ones we did first was the leave policy, mainly because we got some comments from a number of organizations that they're having a hard time recruiting and maintaining or retaining employees because we're not competitive. So I did a study of all the other counties, and we are definitely not competitive, or we're not competitive when we did the study. We were significantly lower on our accruals for both vacation and sick leave. Excuse me. So the basic change in the policy right now is to increase the accruals so that we stay competitive, especially with the 6 surrounding counties. And also, we're renumbering this into a policy instead of a merit rule. We're trying to make the merit rules so that they're basically employment. How you get employed, how you stay employed, and how you get unemployed. And everything else, benefits, this is a benefit. This is not a rule. So that's basically the change. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I may add on to this. So we're working through, Alan has been working through some updating of this entire package of policies and merit rules. We felt it important to bring this today as a discussion item. We will have it back on July 6th, depending on feedback from today, for an action item so that it would take effect with the new fiscal year. First pay period starts on July 4th or 5th, and then we meet on the 6th. So we're trying to get this one in, and then there will be a number of others of these coming for presentation and action later on in the summer. But this one was about timing. If we're going to start changing, if we're going to change the accruals, it needs to be with the fiscal.
It'll take effect the first full pay period in July, if you approve it.
And the other piece of this is it does not change the maximum accrual for vacation. That stays at 240, just allows folks to accrue it faster, to be more competitive and be more in line with our counterparts.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Christensen, do you have questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the red letters that are on this page indicate the suggested changes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
And I know they're difficult to read. I mean, when you redline something, they become, some of them you're going to see are going to be very confusing because it's mostly red and no black left.
So when you did a cross comparison, did you use rural counties, all counties, or?
I used all counties unless they used paid time off. And again, paid time off is a little different. You get a lump sum and you use it for sick leave, vacation, whatever leave you're going to do. And they used to give a flat amount for that. But I compared us to the counties that give accruals for vacation and sick leave, not paid time off.
Now, there's a maximum amount of days you can accrue, right?
Yes. With vacation. Sick
Yes.
leave is unlimited. Vacation is 240 hours.
Do we have a system in place where you can receive a paycheck for these days? Exchange
I don't think so,
the
no.
days for money?
No.
Okay.
There is a provision, and I don't have it on the top of my head, but there is a provision that if you stay here for a number of years and retire from here, you can get a one lump sum payment for a certain amount of sick leave that you've accumulated.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. Christensen, the only way to have a lump sum payment for the vacation days would be to leave.
Okay.
So the vacation days in particular sit as if you retired with something like 3,000 hours or 1,000 hours, you could get paid a small, like $3 an hour. So you get a small reward for saving your sick time.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Alan, all we're really looking at is just their accrued time and the amount that they can get.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So the 240 still stays in effect. They have to burn it or keep it back. They can't transfer any more than that over. When was the last time this was updated?
It looks like it was updated about 10 or 12 years ago.
So it's high time to do it again.
Oh, yeah. Most of the policies that we're looking at, some of them are very old. Some of them were just changed, the number of the policy changed, but nothing else. So we're putting the book together. The process will be, we'll get all the changes made. That'll go to Mr. Menlove and administrative staff for comments, and then they'll go out to department heads for comments. The merit rules will go to the Personnel Commission for their comments.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very, county attorney, we'll get to see them.
Thank you very much for your time in helping us with this to better help catch up with the times. I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to regular agenda item C, information discussion action to approve amendment number 1 to an intergovernmental agreement between Gila County and Pinal County, whereby Pinal County will provide medical examiner services for the period beginning July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 for an annual sum of $375,000. Mary Springer, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors. So as you recall, last year, we entered into this IGA with Pinal County for medical examiner services. And that was kind of pushed by Pima County, who did a lot of our more difficult medical exams. They basically told us they weren't going to serve us anymore unless it was an all or nothing. And at the time, Dr. Fiscioni did probably 2/3 of the medical exams, and then others were sent to Pima County. At the time we did this IGA, I came to you and I thought we were going to have about a $70,000 a year savings, all in and all done. But I'm very pleased to tell you that based on last year's spend to this year's spend, it's more like $220,000, and that's taxpayer dollars that we're saving. A lot of that is attributed to we paid messengers to have the room to do the autopsies. Dr. Fiscioni charged the county $65 for transport permits and cremation permits. And in talking to Pinal County, that isn't a fee that they charge the families pay that. It's a fee that the families, when they move the body to a funeral home or a crematory, that is typically paid by the family, not the county. We also are comparing, we used to pay for all the supplies, all the equipment, and just essentials for Dr. Fiscioni to do his job. So we've saved quite a bit of money. The medical examiner services are open 24/7. And so in talking to the county attorney and our sheriff's department, they're very happy with the service they're getting from Pinal County. Not taking anything away from Dr. Fiscioni, but having a 24/7, even where if you can make a phone call, somebody's going to be there to answer the phone, it's made their jobs a lot more easy. So just giving you a little bit of background on that, and we're asking you to approve the amendment.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Christensen, do you have questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mary. I don't really have any questions. Thanks.
Okay, Supervisor Klein.
No, neither do I. Thank you, Mary.
I've only got one. Is this, okay, this is a flat rate. It's not to exceed this amount?
That's correct.
And it's whether they do 1 or 300?
That's correct.
Okay. Then I guess I have no further questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I can tell you the amount of autopsies that get performed in the county are pretty consistent year over year. But last year, we paid, just for Dr. Fiscioni, $386,560. So just for his services, the $375,000 is less than what we paid him as medical examiner.
Right. Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much. If there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with Pinal County for the annual sum of $375,000.
Mr. Chair, I'll second it.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved unanimously. Thank you. And you're up for the next one
I
too,
am.
so hang in there. Agenda item D, information discussion action to review all bids submitted for call for bids number 05242021 to provide all advertising, publications, and printing required to be done or made by all departments of Gila County for fiscal year July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and award the contract to the Arizona Silver Belt newspaper at the cost of $2.50 per column inch for all paid publishing and advertising. Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors. This is our annual publication, newspaper publication and printing award. And we did send it out to the Pace and Roundup and the Arizona Silver Belt. Pace and Roundup, however, came in a day after the bids were due. So we could not accept it. We had to send it back unopened. So, but we did get one responsive bid from the Arizona Silver Belt, so we're asking you to approve that contract.
Any questions, Supervisor Christensen?
No, thank you, Mary.
Any questions?
No.
I guess I have one. I don't know when the mailing was going, but I do know due to fires that our mail was rerouted through Payson. And so a lot of mail was delayed for quite some time. And I'm just curious if that was during that time that the mail came in a day late.
Mr. Chairman, members, supervisors, I believe the bids came in last week, and the conversation with the lady at the Pace and Roundup is she was going to overnight it, and I believe she put it in the regular mail.
Okay, yeah, no, I was
Yeah.
just wondering if we were being fair with the mail delays. That was all. And so, okay, thank you for the information and the answer to the question. And if there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to award contract number 05242021 to the Arizona Silver Belt.
I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item
you.
was approved unanimously. Thank you, Mary. Okay, we will move on to our regular agenda. Item 3, call to the public. Do we have any public in Payson that cares to address the board today?
No, we do not.
I see no public here in this building. Do we have anyone that would care to address us on the YouTube? Not today. Okay, well, maybe someday we will. Maybe some of them will get really interested and get a hold of us. How many do we have on today? Just curiosity.
The highest today, we had 15 viewers.
That's great. That's more public than we've had in the room, so I'm glad people are interested in what we're doing. Yeah, good deal. Okay, if there's no call to the public, at any time during this meeting pursuant to ARS 38431.02K, members of the Board of Supervisors and County Manager may present a brief summary of current events. No action may be taken on information presented. And I'm going to start with Jackie. Do you have something for us today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was trying to go back through the contract. Mr. Minlove thinks it's a per, the contract for medical examiner thinks it's for a per service up to 190. But I haven't found quite that language yet. What I was, my particular comment was that NOAA, the National Weather Service, is telling us that we have pretty solid medium chances for measurable rain in the next 2 days on, you name the burn scar, and they're tracking it from the bush to the salt to the, we think it's going to rain, and they think it's going to rain in the next 2 days. I just want to make everybody cognizant of that. When it rains on a fire, it could wash, we could likely have flash floods.
Well, thank you. And yeah, and that kind of covers all of them because I think all our fires kind of came together at one point or other.
Yeah.
Okay. Homero, I'm going to go to you, being that we've kind of, with James out, that we're depending on you and Jackie both. So, Homero, do you have anything for us?
Yes, I'd like to just give you a brief update on some of the things that the Public Works team and the rest of the county is working on. We have 2 bagging machines, sandbagging machines that have been set up next to the Public Works building. They probably put out approximately 10,000 sandbags. 80% of those bags have been distributed. There's another 100,000 bags that will be available, and the Team Rubicon, some of our employees and other volunteer groups have been bagging and will continue to bag. We sent 10 pallets, approximately 500 bags to the hospital. ADOT also helped the hospital set up jersey barriers. We've also sent a semi-load of sandbags to Roosevelt, and the sandbags are staged outside of the road yard. We'll keep an eye on them. If we need to send more bags that way, we'll do that as well. Hospital access road, a new egress out of the hospital and into the hospital has been built via Regis Road and Highway 60. Like I said, the road has already been built. We're working with J.E. Fuller on mitigation measures, trying to see if we can get ahead of the rains that are coming. And they're helping us determine where we ought to strategically place sandbags and jersey barriers, trying to pinpoint the choke points that we would have during a mud flow. On this Thursday, we're going to set up 4 cameras, and we're going to also set up 3 new rain gauges, and we're going to repair 3 existing rain gauges. We're going to link them up to our county website, and that information will be available to emergency management for notification. The idea is for these gauges to be available to the public, the gauges and cameras to be available to the public as well. They're going to help us provide some lead time in notifying folks of some imminent flows that may be coming. And the idea, again, is to have them available and that we can use them on a wide basis, the public included. J.E. Fuller is also working on modeling El Capitan area. We wanted to find out the width of the floodplain and some of the critical areas that we need to work on. They're working on that as well, and we hope to hear from them later this week on that. There is a drainage way cleanup that is ongoing. Miami, the town of Miami and the city of Globe have attended various meetings, including one with Public Works yesterday to talk about cleanup in the drainage ways that are inside of the town. The reason that is a priority is because we have easements for much of that area. And so we're able to put our contractors to work ASAP. So we have solicited 8 to 9 contractors to help us with drainage way cleanup, where contractors that in the past we are aware have heavy equipment and can do this kind of work. 3 contractors are under contract. The rest of them, Public Works is reviewing the rate sheets, and we're trying to get all of them on board as soon as we can. There is a little bit of a delay with some of them, and they're trying to get up to speed, have the right number of people, etc. The current plan is to work on the Miami Bloody Tank Wash as it flows through the town. We've assigned 2 contractors to work on that. The contractor has blue staked the areas yesterday, and they plan to start working this Friday. We're waiting for the other contractor to get his work team ready, and they will be available to work in the Globe area on Monday. At the same time, we're working on cleaning up the rest of the drainage ways, and we'll need easements from the public. We're working on that. We have easements available on our website. The town of Miami and the city of Globe also have these easements. We'll be working with emergency management and others to make the public aware that we need easements. We've created maps that'll be available to show where the easements are required and whether or not we have an easement from those folks to kind of help us plan the rest of the work. Somebody wants to grant an easement for us to work on their property, and it is a drainage way that we think needs to be cleaned up. They would need to sign a cooperative agreement. That's That's what they would need to do to grant us that easement. I believe those are the items that I wanted to share with you on work that is ongoing. Hopefully our gauges and cameras are up before some significant rain. Thank you.
Well, Merrill, thank you very much, and facilities and public works for trying to get ahead of some of this with all the sandbags and stuff. Okay, Supervisor Christensen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, about a week and a half ago or so, I can't even remember the day, Governor Ducey invited me to come down to the signing of that $100 million bill. And the bill was for fire prevention and post-fire issues, things like that. So we'll have some of that money available to us as well. And we're already starting to spend some of that with the sandbaggers and bagging sand. So that's good. So I was able to go there. They actually asked me to talk, so I did for a couple of minutes. And so I was proud to represent Gila County in that way. And he signed the bill with one pen. I ended up with that pen, but I have some extras here. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to give you one, and Mr. Klein.
Thank you.
Those are from the governor. And so after that, in Payson, we had the Employee Service Awards. That was good. And I think we have that again today. Am I right? We do at 2 o'clock. Okay. And then also bought some radios, 5 radios for Public Works Department up there in the Star Valley area. And these are special radios that they'll be able to tune into the various aircraft and things like that during a fire, so that they can see what's going on, know what's going on, know where they need to be, where phone communications may be difficult, if even available. So was happy to do that. And then, of course, we've been pretty busy with this backbone fire. Having to evacuate Pine and Strawberry was uncomfortable for a lot of people, but that's really all it was uncomfortable. We didn't lose any structures. We didn't lose any lives. And so I just want to thank, I'm going to leave somebody out. So I just want to thank everybody that cooperated in that. You know, we have a great emergency response team, a great sheriff's department. KMOG actually did a great job. I was on there almost daily. They really are an information station, very friendly to myself and the county. And so I do appreciate that. And the town of Payson really stepped up too, as the town government and the people as well. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for you, Homero, real quick before I get started on this list I got. Did we already receive the assessments on these fires from the Bear team?
Yes, we have received the assessment from the Bear team, and J.E. Fuller is using those maps and that information. Much of the area in Russell Gulch and Bloody Tank Squash and Upper Pinal is low to moderate burn. The area in El Capitan, they do have an area of high severity, but the greater area, even there, is moderate severe burn. And so we have that, and J.E. Fuller is using that to create mud flow maps for us, and we'll make sure that that's available on our website.
Okay, another quick question for you. On El Capitan, on the Mescal fire, are we working with San Carlos on that to mitigate any flooding that's going to go in there, or do they have their own folks doing that?
I need to get in contact with them. I don't have a good answer for that, and I'll get back with you as soon as we make some contacts with them.
Thank you, Homer. And then the last question
Chair.
would be on the Dripping Springs side. Have we got people over there looking and assessing that side of the mountain?
Yes, we do. J.E. Fuller is helping us with that, and the Bear team has basically provided all that information
Okay.
for that area as well.
Thank you, Homer.
Supervisor Klein, if I can interrupt you for just a second, I believe when Homero's finished, Jackie had something to input. So, Homero, go ahead and finish.
Yeah, I had one thought after I concluded. I just wanted to add that the Bear team has worked at amazing speed on this fire to provide us with the maps. And J.E. Fuller is also working at breakneck speeds. They were actually ready to put the gauges and cameras last weekend. Forest Service just didn't feel it was safe for them to get in. But we have a lot greater velocity, I think, this time than we had last time. And so that allows us to try to put mitigation measures in place a little sooner. Thank you.
Thank you, Homero. Jackie, take the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Klein, there are actually 3 Bear teams on this. There's a Bear team on the Mescal fire. There's a BLM Bear team that's down south, and then there's the Tono Forest Bear team up here. The 3 of those Bear teams have been working collaboratively and sharing information back and forth and with us. I believe the BLM Bear team might be not quite to finalized. We have maybe seen some preliminary maps, but not some final maps because they were the last ones to be able to get in.
Mm-hmm. So one more question for you, Jackie, on that note. If the assessments are in and everything, have those assessments been sent to NRCS? Are we talking, have we opened up communications or sent a letter to NRCS on any of this?
So we as Gila County have started we notified NRCS one day last week that we would be, but we haven't had I was out yesterday, so I don't know if they've had a final discussion amongst all 3 Bear teams about what to add, about are they completely finalized and ready to make some recommendations. So
Okay.
we're in that process, and NRCS does know that we're in that process,
Yeah.
and they have acknowledged that we did reach out last week and notify them that we would be contacting them.
Good, thanks. Okay, so Mr. Chair, going on with my update, I got a page here, so bear with me. Last Tuesday, I was with Supervisor Christensen on the employee recognition ceremony in Payson. It was a nice deal. Had fun there. On Wednesday, June 23rd, I headed for D.C., me and Kathy, for the National Association of Workforce Boards. Learned some things there. Hopefully we can kind of put together a overall deal on that and start working on that as well with the board. But while I was in D.C., we made appointments and visited the offices. We started with Senator Kelly in D.C., and then we went on to Representative Gosar and O'Halloran, and the topics that we talked about first with Senator Kelly, he wanted more information on the fires. We talked about the fires. But one of the biggest messages that I pushed on Senator Kelly was the fact that we're spending millions and millions of dollars on suppression, and we're not spending any money up front on fuels reductions. And somewhere along the way, that's got to change. We need to be looking at turning this ship around. So we did that. Also with Senator Kelly, we talked about the admin site there in Pleasant Valley and where we're at with that. And he was more than willing to, actually he wanted to just give it to us that day and was wondering why he couldn't. But he's more than willing to work with Congressman Gosar and Gosar's bill and duplicate that for the Senate and push that along. And also he'll be working with Senator Sinema on that as well. The other part of that I discussed with him was the Bear teams on these fires and the fact that suppression ends, Bear teams come in, and they don't come in with any money. There's no money with them. And that's got to change. Somewhere along the way, they're going to need to rethink that and change that around to give these folks some money to work with. It's a big issue. You know, we get assessments out of them, we get things like that, but there's a lot more they can be doing, especially on the public land side. So that was all discussed. And then I went on to Congressman Gosar. He was in a real visiting mood that day. I think we spent somewhere a little over an hour sitting there talking to him in that office. We talked about the fire stuff, same thing, and he's well adverse on that and knows it's an issue, knows what the issues are. He's well in tune to that. We talked about the bill that his staff, Roy Burke, had wrote. They're ready to go with it. And Congressman O'Halloran has co-sponsored it. So they're ready to push that on and bring that up. And then he brought up Fossil Creek. We talked about Fossil Creek. Fossil Creek has been an issue for the county for quite a long time. I don't remember really when it started, Jackie. I believe it's before me, but it's been going on for a long time. Congressman Gosar was wanting to know where we were at with that, and I told him where we was at with that. He was very pleased to hear, and a big factor in that conversation was the fact that Chairman Huey was the turning point on that project. Had it not been for Chairman Huey, this project would keep going. And with Chairman Huey's help and the tribe's involvement now and where they were, was able to turn that corner on that. So I asked the congressman if he ever, next time he gets into Arizona and is in that neck of the woods, please reach out to Chairman Huey and thank him for that, because that was a huge help. Forest Service couldn't go on any further without the tribe's involvement and their willingness to work with that. So that's a big thing for the county. That turns a bunch of our county, it turns our county problem around, really, and it should take a real big load off of our rescue people and our sheriff's office. And what I would suggest with that, and I know Supervisor Christensen has wrote a letter to Chairman Huey thanking him, but I would suggest that we also send one from the county as a whole where all three of us sign that letter. Because it was all, in fact, Chairman Huey's the one that was able to pull that one together. So if we could do that sometime, that'd be good.
Can I just comment?
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
real briefly? The only reason that the board wasn't included in that letter as a whole was because it would need to come
Right.
before us as a decision. So I wanted to do it that way.
No, I totally understand that. And that gets in our way a lot of times because of time or whatever. But if we could draft a letter sometime and send it to them, that'd be good. The admin site in Young, putting that together and finalizing that for veteran retreats and services there's still no issues anywhere. I mean, everybody is for it. It's coming up. We talked about the lease agreement. We talked about the conveyance of the actual property. Senator Kelly's office had questions on why the 80 acres and not just a specific part of the admin site, but and after I explained to him the layout of the admin site, where everything is and what's involved with it, then they understood real well the need for the whole 80 acres. So I got all that through, and I spoke with Congressman O'Halloran for a minute in the hallway, but we spent quite a bit of time with this staff. And one thing that they brought up to us, Jackie, was on the fire issues. If there ends up being an issue with the NRCS at the federal level, higher than our state, I don't know that there will be, but if there is, they would like for us to let them know. Because apparently they have ties there somewhere that they said they could help with us if we have any need for them to do so. But I told them we're still waiting on assessments. I told them that the state director had reached out to us, and we're getting all this to her, and we'll be going on from there. I think that was it on that. Yesterday, we received the lease agreement from the feds. So, Jessica, it's coming to you. And what will happen is you guys can review it, let us know, and then Kathy will be working for an agenda item that'll bring it all up in front of us three on that. And that's the final step. It will be our signature on that lease agreement. And so the ranger has been awesome to work with on this. Matt Pachorik, yeah, very good guy, and he's made it real easy and has been a lot big help on that. Next week, Wednesday, we're headed to Maryland for NACO, for the NACO conference. Just to go over some topics that's in the Public Lands Committee that I'm on is a targeted grazing for wildfire management, full PILT funding, and then more discussion regarding the 30 by 30 proposal in the Biden administration. I think Santa Cruz, Richard Greenlee. Yeah, Greenlee County, I believe, is drafting a resolution against it. And I believe they're going to present that resolution at NACO while we're there. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that and learning more about this 30 by 30 project. And so that's where we'll be then. And in the meantime, I'm here for a few days. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Well, thanks for representing us in Washington. Just was wondering if there was anything come up on the 203 road with
Yeah.
Washington. And
Mr. Chair, I think the fact of these fires, everything's just been kind of put on the back burner right now
good.
over that. So
And Supervisor Christensen, thank you for representing Gila County down at the signing of the bill. I was invited but unable to attend, so thank you for going down for the signing and representing Gila
Honored
County.
to do it.
And I've attended a post-fire flood response meeting, and I've been on the phone with Senator Kelly and also his staff. And I'm working to try to create a permanent emergency evacuation center rather than just an evacuation center, more of an emergency center. Because I have tried to let everybody know that now that the fires are over, Salvation Army is leaving, the Red Cross and everybody's kind of going away, but our emergencies are just starting. So, like I say, I've been on the phone with Senator Kelly and Coral, his assistant. I've spoke with Cheryl Bender with the Red Cross to try to partner with us. I'm working on getting with Salvation Army to see what we can do about leasing a building, purchasing a building to get us a long-term emergency facility, because we're going to be in emergency status for at least the next 5 years. And so that's kind of what's been occupying most of my time is to let everybody know that it ain't over. It's just starting, and we need something more permanent. Because we've had roads out when the fires were going. 60 was closed, 77 was closed, 87 there was an accident. So we not only had emergency status and evacuations, but we also had displaced travelers. And so I'm working hard to try, because 88's gone. We saw what happened to 188 with a half inch of rain, 9 feet of sediment on it. 60's in jeopardy, 77's in jeopardy, and so I'm trying to sew together something to try to help get ahead of the curve. And so, anyway, we'll attend the awards this afternoon, and that's about all I have. And did that spark anything for anyone else as far as comments? Going once, going twice. There you go. If I was going to go right ahead.
just real quick. I worked with Jackie while I was in D.C., and we've got a young lady that's going to be helping out the permittees that's affected with these fires, Cassie Wagner, and she'll be working with the NRCD boards, both Winkleman and the Tunnel Board, and the county. And what she's doing is they're going through doing assessments on those permits for all the infrastructure that was lost, and consolidating all that and getting it ready to apply for the emergency funding that we hope is going to be there and come up. Jackie?
Along with Amber Barton.
And Amber Barton is the other one. Yes, thank you for that.
Amber's working more closely with is it called the Winkleman NRCD?
Winkleman.
Yeah, but they're working in tandem.
Yeah. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I understand there's lots of red tape on what that money can be spent on and things, and so it's, anyway, one of those deals. Okay, well, I thank everyone very much, the people that visited us on YouTube, and so I will adjourn today's meeting. Thank you. Have a good day.